welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 11 team selection video as we continue the grind towards the top 100k. Guys, if you are enjoying these videos, make sure you do drop a like, do subscribe if you are new around here or if you haven't done already. Let's first of all have a look at our Game Week 10 scores. Okay, so another green arrow in Game Week 10, despite a couple of disasters. But we are up to 158k now, which is really, really nice. It's gradually moving towards that target rank where we can really start pushing on to the super, super good ranks. But yes, guys, a few disasters. Like I said, Trippier with a 0-pointer. That was pretty tough. Gabriel didn't even play, didn't even start. He was my transfer in for the week. But luckily, we got a little bit of luck with Taylor off the bench with his goal. Don't expect he'll score too many goals this season, so it was nice to catch that goal when I could, I guess. Soucek didn't even start the game, so he only got a 1-pointer, and we need to talk about my captaincy as well. Yes, I did go for Watkins as my captain in the end. I do feel like that was a little bit unlucky. Watkins super, super close to getting a goal, had a really nice double chance. I can't believe he didn't score that one, and he had a really good chance for an assist as well, but Zaniolo missed the target. Salah, on the other hand, the popular captain, well, he disappointed a little bit, but did manage to get that goal at the end through a dreadful error from Matt Turner. So I do feel a little hard done by in a way, but at the same time, that is FPL. Luck always plays a part. The point of FPL is to put yourself in the position to get lucky, and to be fair, I did get lucky with the Taylor points instead of Gabriel. So in a way, things did work out for me in some ways, didn't work out with other ways. And in hindsight, would I have captained Salah instead of Watkins? Well, no, actually, I wouldn't. I would have captained Erling Haaland. So it's fine. We'll move on from here. And I'm not going to change the way I play FPL based on this result, because actually, I still feel like I made a really reasonably good decision to back the informed Watkins against a Luton Town team. So yeah, some bad, some good. Diaby coming up clutch there. Son doing well as well. I think we're still in a reasonably good position with our team, and I'm looking forward to moving on to try and deal with some issues that are in my team right now moving forward that I want to talk about. So let's do that now. So first of all, let's lay out my team. One free transfer. We've got 0.8 million in the bank as well. The team value is rising, which is definitely a good sign, right? Let's start off in goal with Areola. He plays against Brentford this game week. Not the greatest fixture in the world, and I still am a little bit worried about West Ham defensively. But Areola is making saves, so you do think that even if, you know, West Ham do continue to concede chances, save points are always on the cards. And let's be honest, when we're looking at goalkeepers right now, there's not too much going on anyway, so you may as well just have a cheap goalkeeper, pick up a couple of points and move on from there. Trippier, a disappointing game week last game week, but against Arsenal at home, it's really not such a disaster as maybe some people think it is. Like Trippier, I would play against anyone. I'd back him against anyone. And to be honest, I think this game could be cagey, and I would not be totally surprised to see either 0-0 or a 1-0 either way. I think Arsenal, maybe their result against Sheffield United has papered over the fact that they're not in insane form right now. They're doing fairly decently, but a draw against Chelsea, not great result in the Champions League a little while ago as well. So maybe there is still some question marks around Arsenal at the moment, but Newcastle are doing super well. They're doing really, really well, in great form, and I would, like I say, I will back them against anyone, and I'll back a player like Trippier against anyone as well. Even though it doesn't look like the greatest fixture on paper, there's still a chance of results here, I think. For cash against Nottingham Forest, well, Nottingham Forest, they're not scoring too many goals, they're not creating too much, so maybe we might finally see Aston Villa get some clean sheet points. Last game week, we got a little bit lucky with cash. Again, we talk about luck and good luck and bad luck. Last week was lucky for cash. Because of his yellow card, he was substituted early and therefore was substituted off before Aston Villa conceded the goal. But I just want to see more clean sheets from Villa moving forward. And in the next two game weeks, I think there's a real opportunity for that. Cash obviously is a player who creates a little bit and takes some shots, gets in the box, which is stuff we like as well. Maybe he can get some attacking returns as well. And finally in defence, I've got Gabriel, and that's a player I know a lot of people are worried about. I am personally not worried about Gabriel when looking at Arsenal's fixture schedule and the amount of games that Gabriel has played, particularly when you consider he played in the international break for Brazil as well, played a lot of minutes there. You do have to wonder maybe if he was rested for that Sheffield United game just so he could get a nice rest in a super easy game so he can now go on and play a lot of games all in a row. And that's what I'm imagining is going to happen now. So in terms of future rotation from Gabriel, yes, it will happen very occasionally, but in general, he's probably going to be, benched, rotated, whatever, once every, 7-8 game weeks. That's pretty much standard for any player in FPL, so I'm not really too concerned. I think he'll start against Newcastle and the games after that as well. Not worried about rotation. And what I really want to say is that after this Newcastle game, which I am a little bit worried about, obviously, after that, the fixtures are amazing for Arsenal. They really, really are good, and I do back Arsenal to keep clean sheets because defensively, they are looking strong pretty much every single game week. Even the Chelsea game where they did concede goals, you do have to look at that game and say, okay, one of the goals they conceded was a cross, the other one was a penalty. Are these kind of things are going to happen every game? Probably not. So in general, when the fixtures get easier, Gabriel is going to get hopefully a lot of clean sheet points. Bonus points are on the cards as well. And you never know when he's going to pop up with a header from a corner or something like that, because that's definitely his role as the target man from those set pieces from Arsenal. So I'm hoping this game week we can get some kind of 0-0 draw. That would really work out for my FPL team, certainly. And after that, I'm not worried at all. I would love to have Gabriel in my team long term. So not worried. Nice cheap player. I think he'll do good for bonus. I think there'll be clean sheets, and I think there'll be the odd goal as well. And Gabriel owners, particularly patient Gabriel owners, will be rewarded. Moving into midfield, we've got Salah, of course. He plays against Luton Town. That's a decent fixture for him, although Salah has perhaps been a little bit fortunate with his attacking returns recently. What you have to look at is Luton Town do concede a lot of chances down that side of the pitch. We saw it with Diaby last game week. Absolutely went crazy on Luton. Can Salah do the same thing? Well, I don't see why not. It's Luton Town. It's a good fixture for Liverpool. It would have been nicer if they were maybe playing at home, but I still back Salah, with his penalties, with his ability to counter-attack. If Liverpool can go up in the game early, we're going to see Salah on the counter-attack, putting the final nails in the coffin of that defeat of Luton Town. So Liverpool looking good, nailed on kind of midfielder here, liking this one a lot. Into my next pick, and that is going to be Son. Really, really happy to still own Son. Like, he is doing so well. He is really, probably to me, the third best player in the entirety of FPL right now. So I'm going to hold him through the good fixtures and the bad. I've decided now Son is going nowhere in my FPL team. He is, I don't want to say a season keeper, but he's certainly going to be in my team for quite some time. Chelsea are obviously sometimes show some fragility, so is this a difficult game? Well, on paper, yes, but I don't think it's going to be the same cagey affair as I think a game like Newcastle versus Arsenal will be. This game could explode at any moment, and Son is going to be the kind of player who does cause the game to explode. And we've got Maddison to partner him up, so we are doubled up against Chelsea here with the Spurs midfielders. Maddison, still a really strong FPL asset. He has that creativity. He will score the occasional goal, and he's on those set pieces as well, so you never know where you're going to get the FPL return from, but there's several different ways he can get FPL returns, which is really nice in those midfield assets. We've got Diaby up next. Nottingham Forest slipping a little bit recently in their defensive ability, so I wonder if Diaby is going to be able to kind of continue his good form from last game and really make good of the fact that his positioning is so good. We finally saw that against Luton. Can we see it again against Nottingham Forest? Well, I don't see why not. And finally in midfield, we do have Thomas Soucek, who is a player I am not happy about owning right now. I did go for him when he was playing as the attacking midfielder for West Ham, and I thought that role would continue, but it looks like he is going to be playing either on the bench, because Kudus is going to be playing as the attacking midfielder, or he could be playing in central defensive midfield. Now, this game week, Alvarez, and this is the West Ham Alvarez, he is going to be suspended, so I do think Soucek is pretty much guaranteed to start in this game against Brentford, but if he does, he is going to be playing deep in the deep-lying midfield position, and those kind of FPL assets that are playing deep are no use to us, really. So I would be looking to actually move Soucek on at some point or another. I know he is just a cheap enabler, and I shouldn't expect too much from him anyway. Having him in my team allows me to have so many other great players in my FPL team, but it still would be nice to have a chance of FPL points. And if he's going to be playing defensive midfield this week, and then after that, he's going to be constantly at risk of rotation, rotation, maybe it's time to just remove him from my FPL team. But we'll talk about that in a moment because we need to talk about my forwards. Erling Haaland against Bournemouth, and I cannot wait for this one. It's a serious chance for some FPL points. Bournemouth have been super weak this season, particularly in the defensive areas, and Man City, you can see, are finally getting back into the flow of things with all of their players back from injury. Erling Haaland is back in form as well, as we saw against Manchester United, so I really expect him to put Bournemouth to the sword. And finally, Watkins in the starting 11 against Nottingham Forest. Like I say, I think they have dropped off a little bit defensively. Aston Villa are in such good form right now. I back them against anyone, and it's going to be Watkins and Diaby, hopefully getting the attacking returns, maybe with Matty Cash involved there as well. Let's go onto the bench very quickly here, guys. We've got Turner against Aston Villa. I'm not even sure if Turner is going to start this game. It might be finally time for the manager to rotate him with Vlachodimos, the new goalkeeper there. So we could see a bit of rotation for Turner. And even if there wasn't rotation, Aston Villa is just a tough fixture right now. They're such a good attack. Taylor against Crystal Palace. I know some people would be tempted to play him. I'm not really convinced. Even against the super weak attacks like Crystal Palace, Burnley are just not doing it defensively. So I would be worried any game week looking for clean sheets, and genuinely do back the likes of Trippier and Gabriel with slightly higher chances of clean sheets because of the kind of way I think that game is going to play out. We've got Kabore against Liverpool. He stays firmly on the bench, and Mubama is just our 4.3 million cheap option on the bench there as well. So this is what I got right now. We've got a transfer. Are we going to use it? Well, let's kind of look through the options here. So in terms of players I would be willing to remove, I put Areola here because, you know, I'm not expecting too many points from him, even in the easy fixtures, because I don't really like West Ham defensively. There's, like, potential to move him to a better goalkeeper, I guess, but is that a waste of a transfer? Possibly. Should I just stick with a cheap guy? Possibly. Trippier, I would be kind of tempted to remove in some ways because he is so expensive, and if I was to downgrade him, that would allow me to really upgrade in the Soucek position. So that does definitely need to be something I think about when making my FPL moves. Can I downgrade Trippier and replace him with someone else cheap, and then go for, you know, a Mitoma or an Mbumo in the midfield position instead of Soucek? That's definitely something I need to think about and consider, even though I do love Trippier as an FPL asset. And ideally, even though the next run of fixtures is not amazing for him, after that, the fixtures turn brilliant, and I really do want to own Trippier long term in this season. I really do have a lot of faith in him. So is it worth the trade-off? I'm not really sure. I think the fact is, I don't really like that many defenders that much at the moment, so can I really do any better? No way. We've got Maddison, who I could potentially think about removing. I don't think he's a must-sell at all, but I guess another player I could potentially move to Saka or downgrade to upgrade other areas of my team. Not really sure. And we've got Watkins up front, who I love. I really do want to keep him. I think he's a great long-term hold, but there is another player tempting me as well. And of course, like I said, Soucek, there's a few issues with him for giving me reasons to want to sell him. He's just not a player I want in my team long term. I'm going to have to deal with this issue at some point. It's just a case of how I do deal with that situation. So let's go through some of the players I would like to bring in. So this is my watch list. These are my transfer targets right now. We've got players in every position, really. So Johnston I like as a goalkeeper. I would consider going for him. He's probably the best goalkeeper to go for right now. So definitely something I could think about. But again, is it a waste of a transfer making a goalkeeper move? Maybe. None of them are really scoring too many points right now, are they? For defenders, Simicast is my star player that I do want to bring in the most, but definitely small shout-outs to Gahey and Branthwaite there. And for midfield, there's a few. Saka and Martinelli, the Arsenal guys I want to get in my team at some point. Is now an away game against Newcastle the right moment to bring in these players? And the answer to that is possibly not. And I do think both players are damaged whilst Jesus is in the team as well. So maybe I wait another week before having another look at these midfielders here. The only way I can get Saka is to sell Maddison, just make a direct transfer from Maddison to Saka, because I'm not going to sell Salah, I'm not going to sell Son. It's just not going to happen. But luckily, I do have enough money to make that direct move. The question is, do I do it now? Do I wait? I think I probably wait on that one. And the other two midfielders I genuinely really like right now are Mbumo, looking really good at 6.7 million, and Palmer. And I know Mbumo has a good fixture against West Ham, but in general, both Mbumo and Palmer have difficult fixtures over the next three. If you take the three next fixtures as a whole, the next three don't look great for either of these players. But, and this is something I want to try and implement into my game a little bit more at the moment, is picking players based on form rather than fixtures, particularly when we're talking about the attacking players. And I do say this fairly often, to be fair. You know, you back players who are in good form no matter who they're playing. I do say that a lot, but it's not always that I stick true to that one. With Mbeumo, for example, had difficult game against, difficult game against Chelsea, and he managed to, get 2 returns in that game and do really well because he's a player in form. Palmer, obviously, on penalties there, had a tough fixture against Arsenal. Did really well in that game. Even last game against Brentford, which I would have said was a difficult fixture. Again, we watched Palmer in those games against Arsenal and Brentford, and he looked really, really good, like really promising in those games, creating, shooting, everything you want from an FPL asset, and for just 5 million. So again, if we ignore the fixtures, Mbeumo and Palmer are 2 of the players we put right to the top of our transfer targets if we ignore the fixtures. So maybe if I want to ignore the fixtures, these are the kind of players I need to be going for right now. Particularly Palmer as a Soucek replacement works perfectly. And we got in the forward position Darwin Núñez, and he's the only player I would even remotely consider selling Watkins for. The problem is with Darwin is that he is a player who I probably would have to transfer back out again. So he's going to be a kind of a 2 transfer player rather than a 1 transfer player if you think about it long term. And Watkins just gives me that stability, that security long term that Darwin is just not going to offer. But I have to admit, Darwin's upside against Luton Town, my word, it is high. It looks really, really good. I think he'll start. I think he'll play a lot of minutes in that game, and I think he'll get results as well. I think he could even outscore Salah in that fixture. So I don't even mind the Darwin captaincy shouts for some of you guys as well. So it's a really, really interesting one. But do I want to sacrifice Watkins? The answer is probably no, and that's the only way I could really do it. So I think I'm basically left with 3 options, or 3 sensible options that I like the most. The first one is just deal with the Soucek issue. It is going to be a move I need to make eventually. It is going to be a persistent problem in my team. Maybe I just need to rip the band-aid off and deal with it now. Soucek is going to be playing as a defensive midfielder, and Palmer is going to be playing as an attacking midfielder slash, false 9 type player. Could potentially be on penalties, and is playing against Spurs. It's a big game, and I think Palmer genuinely has some potential in there. Certainly at 5 million, or the 5 million rough mark, has more potential than Soucek, I believe. And after the next 3, Palmer's fixtures are looking amazing. He was already on my watch list for the long term. I do want Palmer in my team long term. I think he's going to be a great asset from sort of game week 14 onwards. I think that kind of area will get 11, 12, 13. Just hold him through those fixtures. Maybe pick up some 2-pointers and get the occasional attacking return. You can get maybe 2 attacking returns in the next 3 from him for 5 million. You're going to be so happy with that one. Even if you get 1, I think that's good enough. Certainly better than what Soucek is going to offer. So, and then after that, I've got Palmer in already. He's ready to go for Chelsea's phenomenal run of fixtures that they're going to get after that. I do think Palmer is the main man in the attack for Chelsea at the moment as well, which is really, really interesting. But the price is the thing that does it for me the most. It's just amazing. Penalty taker, player looking great, looks like a brilliant football player, creative. For 5 million for, one of the top Premier League teams, you can't really go wrong with that one, can you? So long term, I think this is the right move for me. I could just roll the transfer as well, kind of assess the situation and deal with it next week and see what we're going to have there. Because certainly this week, Soucek is probably going to get you a nice 2-pointer at the very least. So I guess that's something. And Palmer could do just as poorly, to be honest, couldn't he? And my final option here is to do a 1-week punt on Mbeumo. That's definitely an option for me. I like Mbeumo for this fixture against West Ham. So I could do Maddison to Mbeumo for a 1-game-week punt. It's a risky and bold strategy, but I do like doing that kind of thing. And then after that, we move Mbeumo to Saka for when Saka plays Burnley. It would kind of force my hand a little bit though, so I'm not totally sure. I do still like Maddison, like I say. Do I really want to do this? I don't know, but it's a nice high upside punt if I want to kind of go in that direction as well. So definitely an option for me. But for the purpose of this video, and this is the move I'm most likely to make, this is the move I think is probably the best move for me, is to do the Soucek to Palmer move. So let's slap that one on screen. We'll spend 0.1 million in order to make this transfer. And yeah, it will still leave me enough in the bank to make the Maddison to Saka move next week if I wanted to do that. I'm probably going to have to get Palmer in at some point anyway, because my budget is so tight. If I do want Saka, I can't afford for Palmer or Saka to change in price, to go up in price at all. If that happens, I am locked out of that potential plan. So So I'm going to have to do this eventually. It may even be next game week where Palmer goes up in price. So let's just do it now, deal with it, get rid of Soucek, and actually have a decent long-term FPL asset in my team. I think that could be pretty good. I think a lot of people are going to be jumping on Palmer in a few weeks as well. So ahead of the game, ahead of the price changes, everything like that, differential. What's not to love, right, guys? So this would be what my team would look like. We'd slap the captain's armband on Erling Haaland. I think he is the guy to go for. And the vice-captain is going to go there on Salah. And that's going to be a pretty strong team. I think in general, it's a pretty strong team. We've got a few dodgy fixtures, but in general, this week, a lot of the big teams play each other. So naturally, we are going to find ourselves with a few red fixtures, but there's still going to be players we want to hold long term. And you never know what's going to happen in football. If you've got players in good form like Son and Maddison and Palmer, even in the difficult fixtures, there's still a good chance that they do pretty well and deliver on some FPL points. So this week, the theme is form over fixtures, and we're going to need it because the fixtures in general for this game week in FPL are not great. Okay, so looking at the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool very quickly, just to get an idea of where I'm at with my team. Straight away logging into this, I figured out something that I had not figured out before. And this is the great thing about going to these tools and just using them just as a quick check over for your team, a little bit of surgery, a little bit of inspection of your team by kind of an outside source that so happens to be a robot. But regardless, the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool is suggesting that actually we drop Soucek altogether and go for Charlie Taylor instead and play a 4-4-2, which I hadn't even really considered as an option. So that is definitely something we could potentially do. But going with our original plan, assuming we do go with the plan of playing a transfer and moving Soucek to Palmer, let's lock that in very quickly on here. It is saying that that is going to be a slightly better option. So Palmer obviously slightly more predicted points than Taylor anyway, so that's pretty decent. And it looks like Palmer, out of all of the players who cost less than 5 million in that midfield position, it does look like Palmer has the highest predicted points of all of them, more than Adingra over the next couple of game weeks. So despite the tough fixtures, it still could work out pretty well, to be fair. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of that. But I do also want to check out what my AI transfer suggestion is before I go ahead with that one. And I do just want to make sure if we go to game week 12, that would still leave us with enough money to transfer out Maddison and go for Saka. Let's just make sure we can do that. Yes, that would work. I think it would just about work when we consider price changes that I have in my team. So it's going to be tight. It's actually saying I'm 0.1 million over budget, but I know I'm not because there has been price changes since this. So yeah, that's actually fine. That's okay. Okay-ish, I guess. But it gives me a team rating of 98% if I make those two transfer moves. And it makes my Game Week 12 team look really, really good if I was to continue to follow in this plan. So looking at my AI suggested transfer, it is actually telling me to remove Soucek. So at least I'm right about wanting to remove him from my team. But it says bring in Gordon instead. And I definitely understand why. Gordon is obviously a very good pick. The problem is, and the worry why I don't know if I want to make this move, is because if I do that, then that basically means I can't do the Saka move. I can't get to Saka without selling Son, and I'm just not selling Son. It's not happening. So, yeah, definitely understand this line of thinking. As an individual transfer, it looks good, doesn't it? But I just want to leave myself open, plan for the future, and have that option to make the Saka transfer next game week, because I feel like I have to do that ahead of the Burnley fixture and all the amazing fixtures that Arsenal have. Saka is just going to be the one, isn't he? So, yeah. I like the idea. I would love to have Gordon instead of Soucek, but unfortunately, I can't afford to do everything I want to do, I guess. So yeah, guys, make sure you are checking out the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. There's a link in the description. You can check this out for absolutely for free. It's a really good tool to just get an idea of what your kind of options are with your FPL team before locking in your own decisions. It's just a really handy tool to have on the side there. So yeah, use it every week. Recommend you guys do exactly the same thing. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. If you did enjoy, make sure you do drop a like. Do subscribe if you are new around here as well. Tomorrow, we are going to do our final press conference roundup, as well as any other final questions you have. We are going to answer them all in tomorrow's video. But we have loads of other Game Week 11 content on the channel right now, including the return of the 100 Experts video. So make sure you go check that out right there if you want to see that one. But aside from that one, see you on tomorrow's video, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.